We can talk about AI all day long.
So we can. I'm sure we can be here all week as well.
I think we are the first generation of parent that, if you are being honest with yourself, you have no idea how to give advice, career advice to your kid. Because most likely they're not. It's going to be wrong, right? But again, like you say, what do you advise your kid? And the other thing is that what do you...
You don't even know what to advise yourself.
You tell your kid, you're on your own, right?
I'm also figuring out.
Not this time, right?
Sorry, little buddy. A lot of AI is also bullshit. Right?
Yes.
And I think some famous example, and I think this was one of my favorite examples. I don't know if you remember about Amazon just walk out.
Yes.
So you're like, oh, it's so cool, it's all AI, it's all visual AI. You just take it, you walk out, and then the payment was settled at the back end. And then it turns out to be 1,000 folks that's outsourced in India, right? And
they call Amazon AI actually India.
I know.
We came out with like text to action and voice to action kind of features for the app, which means that pay Vincent $20 and you will get $20, right? So that interface sounds very simple, but it's actually quite magical when you try it out.
Welcome to another episode of Fintech Fireside Asia. Today, I'm joined by a very good friend, Foong Chee Mun, and also one of my favorite human beings to talk to about the topic of AI. Now, Chee Mun is a very, very impressive man. He started out as the founding member of Simulex, where he served the US Department of Defense. He's also the co-founder of a US-based neobank, and he was the first Malaysian fintech founder that was listed on the New York Stock Exchange. And recently, the company was sold for over $1 billion. Currently, Chee Mun is the Chief Product Officer of RightBank and also the CEO of YTL AI Labs. Now, of course, he has this list of impressive accolades, but the real reason why I invited him to join us on the podcast today, and I don't know if you remember this, Chee Mun, it was about 6 years ago, I think we shared a webinar.
Okay.
And in this webinar, we were talking about AI, and I remember asking all the panelists whether or not AI will cause job losses down the road. And everybody gave me a PR answer. Everybody was like, oh yeah, maybe a little bit, but we try to augment it. AI won't cause job losses. I think you were the only one who gave me like a straightforward answer. You were like, yes. So I think, it's great to have Chee Mun here to give us a no bullshit version of what's going to happen in the space of AI. So maybe we start with something heavy. I think Stephen Hawking, when he was still alive, he said that one of the greatest threats to humanity possibly is AI. Or did he phrase it that it may end mankind or something like that? So I guess my question to you, like from your vantage point, what are some of the biggest threats that you see AI pose to humanity? And also, when should I surrender to the AI overlords?
You should surrender today.
Start seeing the surrender.
Yes. I'm kidding. But to me is that AI. I've been working on AI for such a long time, more than 20 years now. And to me, it's still a technology. And as technology goes, is that it brings multiple advantages to the society, including freeing us from doing really potentially physically demanding type of work and boring stuff as well. And thus, freeing our mind to more creative endeavor. But if everything goes is that generative AI, it also becomes more creative than us, which can be interesting. However, I think there is still ways that we can work with AI in such a way that to bring betterment to generally to the society. And as with any technology, they are always downside to it, mainly because technologies are tool after all. When good people use technology, this essentially is to serve more of the society. And when bad people use technology, is is meant to hurt certain part of the society, and thus those are real risks. And in fact, those are not just risks; those are what the people are using to hurt society, and it's something that we as society should be constantly be aware of and try to negate these kind of actions. There's no question about it. But I don't think, as of any technology, including nuclear technology, for example, right, the technology itself isn't evil. The technology itself was invented for its inherent good. But fortunately, with all inherent good, it can be used in the wrong way. However, I do also think that a lot of people gave too much credit to AI. I think a nuclear bomb is a lot more dangerous than most AI
At least
systems that you have.
Physically, it's far more dangerous.
Yes, I do think a lot of doomsayer over.
So I think it's overplayed this whole.
I think it's overplayed, but I think what we are underplaying is that we are underplaying how much of society will change with AI. I truly think that if our AI adoption here right now, there's no way to correctly measure it, but if our AI adoption now is like 15%, in 3 years' time, it will be 80%, 90%. So we will underestimate how prevalent AI is in the very near future.
I think just like how we didn't predict how ubiquitous smartphones are.
Exactly.
Right. So I think in the same sense, is that what you're saying? Like it will mirror that kind of trajectory.
Exactly. And if you think about smartphone, smartphone after all is are the pipes, right? Essentially are the medium that you communicate with people, you communicate with content. But AI is intelligence, right? So which means it is the final product. With final product, I think it's going to be even more prevalent, simply because with intelligence, that means culture, right? That means your daily life, your processes, your businesses. So it can be a lot more interwoven into your lives than say you and cell phone.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting because you were talking about how like AI is removing us from some of the more mundane and more physical labor kind of tasks to free us up to be more creative. And I feel like 5-10 years ago, I fully bought into that narrative, right? But as you said, with generative AI, I'm starting to wonder if there will come a time where AI is the one doing all the creative stuff and we are doing all the boring stuff, you know?
And let me just warn, right? Like that. And let me just warn the fact that, like,
yeah,
just because the prediction is that like in 3 years' time, the society will be a lot more interwoven in AI, and the fabric of society will change.
Yeah.
And case in point is that if you look at Grab, right? It used to be there are so many taxi companies where you have like an operator that are reasonably smart, managing like 10, 15 taxi drivers. But now you have essentially what Grab is the AI that control all of these human drivers, right? So humans are already doing more mundane stuff controlled by a very smart AI. So that is a very different scenario than most of us imagine. But the true thing is that we as a society should really confront when the jobs are being taken over by AI, how can we help those people that are being displaced, right? Or how do we embrace the technology and use it to educate the next generation so that they are a lot more productive in the world of AI? So these are all stirring questions.
I'm branching a lot of very different thoughts based on this conversation and so many directions to take this conversation, right? But just to maybe take a step back and talk about some of the risks. And I think personally for me, one of the things that scares me the most about AI is our relationship with truth. And I feel like emergence of AI is slowly shifting away because it used to be what you see is truth. And that's no longer the case because we are seeing cases of like deepfakes in Hong Kong and CFOs being on webcams and millions of dollars being lost. I'm sure there's a lot of psyop going on as well, like changing the narratives, driving certain things. And I don't know, is that a concern for you? How AI will shape the way we view truth in the world?
It's a risk. I think like everything else, when there is a big change, a leap in technology, which is what it is right now in generative AI, there is always a juncture where the good guys, for example, the entrepreneur, will take advantage of that, building the next big company. And then you have the bad guys who take advantage of it that will be trying to swindle a lot of money. And essentially, they will be successful in doing that, right? But if you're talking about the changing nature of truth, well, the thing is that it has been going on for a bit of time, right? So the first,
but it's far more scalable.
It's far more scalable.
Yeah.
And case in point is that the first newspaper were created to do propaganda, right? And for the longest time, when you control the newspaper, you control the truth. So the concept of truth actually shifts. And when the internet comes by, right? And nowadays, in this day and age, a lot of the population, majority of the population actually take much of their news, ingest much of their news from like TikTok or YouTube or influencers. So the concept of truth again changed,
Right.
and you see the truth from nowadays. A lot of them, rather than controlled by 2 or 3 big organization, political or otherwise in a country, now it's controlled by influencers, right? And generally be a very democratized
billionaires who buy platforms.
Who buy platforms as well. Yes, that's important. So. So the concept of truth has been evolving, and at every single point, people adapt to it, right? So when you first get social media, you get all sort of truth or untruth being spread through social media, through WhatsApp and whatnot. But after a while, people become sort of immunized to it, and to a certain degree, right? To a certain degree, there are still more gullible people that
I guess people become more wiser to it. Like
correct.
Eventually, more and more
correct.
population become
correct.
wiser.
So that's why I'm saying like now we are at the juncture where there is a sudden eruption of technology in generative AI. Plus, people are not used to hyper realistic video of like say. My uncle was asking me for money, right? But eventually, I think...
Well, if he's always asking you for money, then
yes,
it's a bit unbelievable, right?
Yes. Good thing I don't have that uncle. So, but eventually, I think we will get used to a point that, okay, this guy who looks really like my uncle asking me for money, I better double check with my real uncle, right? So I think humans generally do get wiser. But unfortunately, I think as a bank and potentially even talking from a country standpoint, from a regulator standpoint, and from enforcer standpoint, you do have to be to get updated with this kind of latest exploits.
And I want to take back to one of the points you brought up also about the shifting nature of jobs as well. I think there was an AI thought leader. I believe his name is Kai-Fu Lee.
Okay, yes.
He predicted that nearly 50% of jobs will be either shifted or lost by 2027. And I remember we also ran a story on DBS where Piyush Gupta announced that about 4,000 jobs will be replaced in the next 3 years as well. So as a parent, right? If you think about like what to send, what kind of courses and what kind of education to give your kids to be future-proof, what would you send your kids to study?
That's a very good question. See, that's the thing, right? As a businessman, as an engineer, as a parent, right? So when you hear things that are not so important, you think about, okay, how does it affect my life? Think of things that is slightly more important, than you think, okay, how does it affect my business? And when you see something that is really important and consequential, then you start thinking, hey, how is that going to affect my kid?
Exactly.
And what kind of advice do I like?
The degree of
right. And it's and frankly, like my kid is 11 year old right now, which means that he will have like 6 or 7 years before I go to university. And frankly, I think we are the first generation of parent that, if you are being honest with yourself, you have no idea how to give advice, career advice to your kid. Because most likely they're not. It's going to be wrong, right? And case in point, like, don't even talk about my kid, right? Let's talk about myself, for example, right? Like most of my life, my title is CTO. And I cannot grow up wanting to be a CTO because that title doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Right? And most of the people in my company have the title of data scientist. Invented like what, 10 years ago,
That wasn't
15
the
years
thing.
ago.
Yeah.
So there is no such thing, right? So more likely than not, and nowadays you have so many of these titles, right?
Yeah.
And they're doing real work, right? Like LM engineers, like
Yeah.
prompt engineers, and everything else, right? So more likely than not, your kid are gonna be doing things that you have no idea what to call it.
Yeah.
So
A new title might be invented, right?
I think like between now,
Yeah.
when my kid actually start working, I think there will be like 45 titles being invented, like rather than one, right? So the only advice I simply think that like you is to focus more on humanity, right? Because you cannot outcompute an AI or a computer, but you can outhuman a computer, right? The more human you are, the better it is, and obviously, you know, like the regular stuff, adaptability and everything else becomes extremely important. And gone are the days where I don't even know those days because it doesn't happen to me, is that where you go to uni and be one career throughout your life, because whatever you study in uni is enough to be applied throughout your life.
Job,
right?
you know, something.
There is no such thing in this day and age. So you will have to keep learning all your life. So
there's no definitive answer, I guess, to think about what would be the correct education or the path to teach our children. I suppose it's just the fundamentals of who they are and how they approach things in life would be the key to it. And you know, the conventional wisdom, like I guess maybe 5-10 years ago, people would say, oh yeah, coding is great, you know, you get like 400 500k in Facebook, whatever, you know. And nowadays, I don't even know. I remember Jensen Huang also said something that kind of taken a lot of people aback, right? He also said, like, what was it? Don't know how many years later coders might not even exist.
I think just strictly from the traditional sense of a coder standpoint, it doesn't exist, and it's really interesting, right? And it happened in my lifetime as well, right? There were so many career or jobs that in this day and age you just simply don't hear about it anymore, like a webmaster, for example. It used to be a thing, right? And
that word, you didn't even know that one, right? That was a thing.
like if I say it to my kid would just look at me funny, right?
Is that like Dungeon Master? Like, is that the same thing?
It's amazing. Like and the truth is that like when during the mobile time, like we used to have like what 80% back-end engineer and then 10% front-end engineers, right? But then when mobile comes in, and then you shift the balance into like 50% mobile engineer and 50% back-end engineer. Then you have like so many new jobs being called, right? ML ops engineers, LM engineers, AI engineers, machine learning engineers, you call it. So I don't think the coding itself coder itself will completely be displaced. However, because coding is essentially a way to tell the machine to do something, right? So the digitalization will only be increased going forward, right? It will be accelerating the digitalization of it. So which means telling the computer to do something, there are more of it. It's just that the
interface of it,
the endeavor of coding might be easier, or more natural.
So you would say it's a less technical endeavor down the road?
Yes, the logistic of it become less so. Just strictly from my personal experience standpoint, once upon a time, if I have to code up an application, I will have to figure out what kind of libraries I want to import, and sometimes I import the wrongly, and then how to package it into like certain images and stuff like that. Those become unnecessary because AI can do it for you. So it frees you up into thinking what kind of product you want to really engineer, right? So which means that instead of backend engineer, DevOps engineers and front end engineer, everyone becomes a product engineer, which I think in the long term is good, because then all you think about is what kind of product that is better serving the consumers or the people that you want to affect, right? So I think that's what they call the Jevon paradox, where you know, like the cheaper something is, the total market for something will become much bigger.
So it really is, I guess, democratizing coding in a way.
I think you can even go one level, like code. It democratized the creation of digital products, right? So
And the other angle to that, right, the democratization, and I think this is something that I do think is a positive development of AI. You know, in my whole career, I've met a lot of very brilliant people, but sometimes brilliance doesn't always equate with your mastery of language. And a lot of times in corporate environments, these very, very smart people, they cannot communicate. They send emails and people like, you know, what are you saying? You know, not smart. And I like that development. Like now everybody has like that equal footing to be able to excel in the kind of environment, similarly with what you were saying with coding, right? And I want to go back to another point you brought up, and you're saying like AI can be overhyped. And I think a lot of AI is really cool, but a lot of AI is also bullshit. Right?
Yes.
And I think some famous example, and I think this was one of my favorite examples. I don't know if you remember about Amazon just walk out.
Yes.
So you're like, oh, it's so cool, you know, it's all AI, it's all visual AI. You just take it, you walk out, and then the payment was settled at the back end. And then it turns out to be 1,000 folks that's outsourced in India, right? And
Yeah, they call Amazon AI actually India.
I know. That was the most hilarious thing I've read. So, like, how much of AI is bullshit?
The truth is that I think the AI now, the capability of it is really mind blowing. First of all, it's good to have the bullshit era because that's just where you feel your way around the technology and be able to build something on top of it, right? So case in point, when mobile was being invented, the best app that we had on iPhone is the one that turned on your flashlight. Right? That was the most useful one, right? But eventually something like Uber, $1 billion company being built on top of it, right? So I think similarly, the AI, the generative AI, the LLMs of the world, VLM of the world, people have to start building things on top of it, application on top of it, and those will be the stuff that will permeate your life, eventually.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to be very interesting, and to talk a little bit back on like the software development stuff. The reason why Jensen said that the coders might be extinct in the near future is because the creation of digital product, the logistic of it can be done using AI. So which means that the creation of digital product become, firstly, a lot cheaper, and secondly, a lot riskless for companies to do it. So I think we might be coming to an era where you know, like a PC kind of thing, where you have your own PC. I would say like in the very near future, we'll have the era of personal software, where a software is created just for you, specifically for you, or specifically for a small department in your company. And this is something that we experience in the right bank as well, where we built the CRM system for our ops team using one engineer. So during Moneyline time,
One engineer.
Yes, during Moneyline time, we built it using like about 15 engineers. You can see the evolution of it, right? And this is displacing like Salesforce and everything, that where you pay you know, like millions of dollars of licensing. Like we use one engineer, and we managed to build it in 6 months. And beyond that, the engineer becomes so bored that they're like, "Hey, can I do something else?" So this tells you like the evolution. So it becomes so cheap. It can become like what the era of personal software. So which means that what does it mean, right? Which means that you can create software that is very specific to what you do, right? Or your daily quirks, right? So which means that software will be permeating very much deeper into your lives or your business life or your department life than before. Because previously you have to use Salesforce, which was created for like thousands of companies, tens of thousands of companies, and thus it's generic, right? And
there's a limit to how much customization you can do with a platform like that.
Yes, and if you think about it, like much of our lives, much of our corporate life involves how well we deal with bad software. Like the better, if the better you deal with bad software systems, the higher you get up.
It's strange that it doesn't even
sadly
escape that,
the
right?
truth in our lives.
No, it's true. It's
So
hilarious.
hopefully with AI, I think we're gonna displace some of it,
Yeah.
and the software are actually very tailored to you, and it will be cheaply being manufactured and everything else.
I want to jump into what you guys are doing at Right Bank, but before that, I have one more question for you. I think
We can talk about AI all day long.
we can. I'm sure we can be here all week as well. A lot of life is inspired by fiction. I think in the 90s, where we see all the science fiction, a lot of those technologies become real today, right? So when you think about AI, what is a favorite piece of fiction that you have that you really resonate with, and you think maybe it's a reflection of what AI might look like in society?
I think the movie Her. Was,
I was gonna say the same.
yeah,
I really
yeah,
love that one.
and
Yeah.
I think there is a certain
Yeah.
level of truism in it that I think where the in that movie the evolution of the agent actually is much faster than human, and I think that will be true going forward as well, where the AI will be developing much faster than human, and it's something that we have to confront with, right? So
who doesn't want Scarlett Johansson next to you?
yes, that voice. That's why OpenAI copied it. I do.
Yeah,
but,
I mean they allegedly did not. Let's be real. But I think it's so interesting, and I really love that example you brought up, because I think one of the core themes that I really liked about that piece of fiction, that movie, is the kind of loneliness in a technology driven world, and our relationship with technology. Does it go to the degree where you can actually even fall in love with AI, right? And there's a lot of like deep, I guess, considerations and philosophical thinking behind a movie like that.
And that's the thing, right? It's already happening, right? Like some of the companies that I've witnessed in China and also in the US, you're talking about a companionship, real companionship, and these are hit products, right? And like some of the companies actually, the product is so sticky, people use it so much that like
I'm a bit worried when you say companionship and sticky, but
we're not gonna go there.
Let's not go there.
It's a family friendly podcast.
Family friendly podcast.
But it's something that we have to think about. And frankly, if you look at it, if someone is less lonely simply because there are 3 or 4 artificial agents that they talk to on a daily basis, it might not be a bad thing, right? And there are companies that sort of recreate your friend or your family that passed away, and is that healthy? It's hard to say, but at least it scratched some itch, right?
I mean, there's literally an episode of Black Mirror on something like that.
Oh, really? Okay. Yes. Yeah. So unfortunately, like most of the science fictions generally paint the arrival of AI or more modern technology as something that make human lonely.
Or even doom humanity.
Doom humanity. Right? So I guess that's the kind of movie that we want to watch, right? If a movie says that AI makes humans happier and collaborate better, it's not the movie I want to watch, right? So but the case in point is that, like, if you look at that you mentioned of telephone once upon a time, that you mentioned of social network. At every juncture, like everyone predict, okay, now that there is telephone, no one will want to get out. The same thing with like the mention of like social network, no one will want to get out. But the truth is that it encourages people to get out more. Like just because of like social network. With KL foodie, I'm actually going out to eat more than before, right? So I think a lot of these
humans crave connection at the end of the day.
End of the day, if you think about it, that's why humanity, to understand your nature of humanity is so important, right? Because end of the day is that humanity shows that we are social animal, and thus when we free ourselves from the regular encumbrance, we will tend to be more social than less so.
So let's jump into some of the cool stuff that you guys are working on Right Bank. And I think it's so interesting. And, we spend so much time looking at digital banks around the world, right? And most of them are doing pretty cool stuff, but it's very, I would say, incremental improvements to what we already have. But when you showed me the demo the other day, I thought it was really, really cool, like to be able to do all that. Can you tell our audience a little bit more about that?
Yes. In the risk of
whatever you can say.
okay, I think I can say in the risk of sounding a bit boring because it will be a bit technical. Because I'm an engineer, so I just cannot be happier to live in the era where for most of my life I'm a computer engineer, right? So most of my life computer exists in one form, which is the von Neumann computer form, right? Which is if you want to tell the computer to do something, you have to learn the computing language, right? Like which is like Java, Python, or even user interface, right? But now, finally, in the last 2-3 years, we have a wholly different form of computing, which the computer, as in the LM computer, is able to understand human natural language, right? So to me is really exciting, and I think that alone will power much of the innovation going forward in the next 3 years. And the problem with having a chief of product officer who's an AI guy is that the guy who just put AI in every damn thing.
Where can be AI in this?
So to me, the bank is frankly, like I've been dealing with digital bank for the last 15 years or so, one way or another. And a lot of AI has been used in the back office for banks or digital banks or otherwise. But really, it's really hard for anyone to point like, okay, this is the innovation that banking system has done for consumer from a digital system standpoint. There is close to none. It's crazy, right? So I was thinking, okay, now that we have this opportunity, right, where you have this rupture of technology that suddenly computing system can understand natural human language. So what can we do? To me, it's very simple. How do you use natural language to tell the banking system to do something for you? And so we came out with like text to action and voice to action kind of features for the app, which means that pay Vincent $20 and you will get $20, right? So that interface sounds very simple, but it's actually quite magical when you try it out. And simply because of this, when we test it out to a bigger group of audience, there are two polar sides of people that find it very useful. The first one who are potentially power users like us, who just want to save time, right? Just pay Vincent $50. I don't want to click like 5 clicks, right? So that is one group of users, and the other group of users are potentially a more senior type of
civil service, as they call it.
Yes, who needs like coaching, right? So they will say pay, and then the LM will say like pay who, and then to which bank, and then they feel coach, right? They feel someone is holding their hands.
It's like maybe their children telling them how to use the app.
Exactly,
like that, right?
Exactly. And this is their children holding their hands to do every transfer, right? So it's very good. And the other thing is that the generative AI, the large language model, beyond understanding human natural language, is also very good at understanding artifacts that are generated for human. So what does that mean, right? Like artifacts generated for human are like news articles and including invoices, right? And including like WhatsApp messages, right? So what we did is that in RightBank, we automatically ingest the invoices and be able to tell you immediately into an action, like who to pay to, how much, and which bank, and you will be able to execute it immediately. So that part of it actually feel even more magical. I think we need to show the world.
With one question, with tax season coming up for most of us, is there a time where you foresee I can go into your app and say which of these are tax claimable?
I think that's
doable.
hugely doable in this day and age. And
that'd be really cool, man.
If you upload all the receipts into something, it can be something that an AI will be able to list it 100% for you. How accurate it is, maybe you will still need some tweaking here and there.
I definitely look forward to that function. And I think to me, I'm thinking about the implications of this, right? And when we look at the industry of banking, there's always one piece of technology that we can point to that changed the way we interact with banks, right? There was one point where payments were like checks and you sign,
Right.
and then came the internet. You're like, okay, online banking. Then you have authentications. Then you go from bricks to clicks to then smartphones. And do you think that there is a future, or maybe when do you foresee a future where the way we interact with banks is through a very natural kind of language?
I think the very near future, man.
Yeah.
In the next
2,
1 year or so.
3, 1 year.
Yeah. It will be very natural language. It will be.
Yeah.
In fact, I think the better way to imagine this kind of technology is not even okay. To command a like a bank agent to do something for you is something that I think will be table stake in like a year time. But everyone will be having it. Because we built it, right? And frankly, it's not that tough.
Maybe to you.
so I am just assuming like it will be reasonably democratized. But I think the good thing about the mobile platform is the fact that we live most of our life on a mobile phone, right? So I think the next generation will be how do you combine like your banking app with your maybe your Shopee app, maybe your fitness app and whatnot. So I think that's where potentially something can even have more profound implication on most people's life.
I think it's so interesting because I feel like sometimes when we're just going through life, we don't think about all of these things, right? And just within our lifetime, the way we interact with the world is completely different because like just a decade plus ago, we don't have a smartphone. Now, like all we do is we work here, we get entertained here, we communicate here. Everything is there.
Like
right?
my food adventure was entirely on the cell phone, right?
I get food delivered to me on this thing. And it's like if AI were to replicate that kind of trajectory or even be faster than that kind of trajectory, I can't imagine 1, 2, 3 years what life will be like.
It's gonna be again like I say, right? Like even my prediction of where AI is gonna be in 3 years, I can tell you there's 80% chance that I underestimated in 3 years time. So and this is a different sort of implication, right? Like again, like you say, what do you advise your kid? What and the other thing is that what do you
don't even know what to advise yourself.
You tell your kid you're on your own, right?
I'm also figuring out
not this time, right?
Sorry, little buddy.
So like again, you cannot even advise on the job title that is gonna get the job title. Like there's no such thing as like, hey, there's 3 things that you can choose for, right? Like doctor, lawyer, and engineer. That's it, right? There's no such thing anymore. And how do you advise a country? Right? Like it becomes a very profound, hard question, right? There's no question that your populace will be using AI a lot more, right? And you will be underestimating the amount of AI that they will be using in 3 years' time. You know, what we have seen it many times all around the world is that certain country will be using their prowess in AI to withhold certain technology from certain countries just because of political fighting. And that is something that we have to confront as a country as well. So for multi level is AI becomes a interesting phenomena as we go forward.
Yeah, I'm sure. Speaking of geopolitics, right? I guess we see a AI war going on between China and US.
That's right.
Who do you think is leading the war right now? And who do you think will ultimately win the war? And an add-on question to that is where does Southeast Asia fit into this whole picture?
Good question. So there's no question. I think for the longest time and for the foreseeable future, US is going to be leading.
Okay.
Right. And really, there are only 2 players in the world, right? US and China in AI, right? But China is fast becoming a fast second behind US, and it's catching up very fast. And in fact, a lot of things they are actually innovating very fast, right? So And case in point is that if you look at fintech, for example, right? Like US used to lead in fintech, like with Visa, Master,
not
the ATM machines and stuff like that. The Chinese started to innovate in fintech, and they overtaken
and
US.
it changed the game altogether.
It changed the game altogether, right? I believe same thing is going to happen in AI as well. But the good thing about AI is that the truth is this, right? They have a survey. I don't know how true is the survey. Is that they were saying 58% of the top AI researchers in the US are of Chinese ethnic.
Oh,
so the good thing is that there is a reason why they have to love each other. It's simply because they are the same type of people anyway, right?
Actually, when you think about the company CEOs also, Jensen Huang,
Yeah,
Taiwanese Chinese.
yeah.
Lisa Su,
Yeah,
Taiwanese Chinese.
Yes.
Now Intel Malaysian Chinese.
Yes.
And
all the semiconductor, all the hard industry, all the Chinese, and then you have the software industry are predominantly like Indians, right? So the Indians and Chinese are taking over. There's no question about it.
We do have a large population. We've got that going for us.
Yes. Hopefully, there are more friendly collaboration, right? And frankly, with countries like Malaysia or Singapore and whatnot, we don't have the resources to invest as much as US and China. So I think to a certain degree, what we have to do is to be is to collaborate with them, both with like Chinese and then the US, right? Like case in point is that like we bought a whole bunch of Nvidia stuff, right? Which is the US based stuff, and
under the YTL
correct
that you're wearing,
correct, and then we collaborate with some Chinese LLM makers as well, including like Alibaba and whatnot. So we are closely working with scientists around the world and companies around the world in this space as well. So we will definitely have to play the Swiss of
Swiss of AI.
Yeah, the Swiss of AI.
I think that's in many ways always been the kind of policy approach in Malaysia as well, balancing between the two superpowers. Now, before we wrap up the session,
of course,
maybe last two questions, right? One question is, what is one bold prediction you can share with us about AI? And two, what can we expect from Right Bank in the next few years, next few months?
Oh, okay. So answer the right bank, so because
the easy one first. Take the
easy one first. Right. Okay. Firstly, hopefully we're gonna launch soon.
Okay.
Publicly. And hopefully, we will people get to finally see what is AI in banking really means, right? So for the longest time, AI to humanity is really invisible. We have been using AI all day long with Google, with Facebook, with Grab anyway, but it's invisible to us. But I think this is one of the very few examples where AI is actually visible to you and directly interacting with you, right? So that's going to be exciting. And we'll continuously see the hopefully people will get impressed by it, but the good thing about my position, I don't know if it's a good thing, but it can be a bad thing as well, where we know the roadmap and we was like, what you're seeing is not just it, right? Like try not to be impressed because you will be a lot more impressed in the near future anyway.
This is just a tip.
Yes, this is a tip. So yeah, hopefully I think we can change the way people generally perceive what banking services is. So that can be hugely interesting. And from a backend side, we are trying to be to be very amenable to different partners through technology. We think that a lot of times bank don't partner a lot with other companies, not because they don't want to or they're snobbish or something. It's because the cost of it is high.
Yeah, it's prohibitive.
Hopefully, with technology, we can even democratize that part of it, right? So that's something that we are working on as well. So that's from the right bank standpoint, and really, I'm very excited about especially the human AI interface with right bank, because it's not just about convenience and just humanizing the banking service. Is not just about that. Like it can even be something that can be the only way certain people with certain handicap be able to access banking services easily.
Right.
So there is certain importance to it as well.
So it adds a whole dimension to inclusion.
Correct. So yes, that's something that I'm very excited in the next.
But I feel like you are even downplaying it a bit, because I feel like it really is reimagining the way we do banking. If these things really is executed to the ideas that you guys had in mind.
Yes. That's one.
But let's see.
Let's see. Yes, let's see how much it's.
We'll see when it launches, and hopefully this bank will be launched by the time the podcast goes live.
Yes.
And the bold prediction.
Yes. Again, my bold prediction is a meta prediction that firstly, I think we will be wholly underestimating how important AI is in the next 3 years, and in the next 1 or 2 years, the human computer interface will be entirely changed, and you don't even remember when you start doing like regular banking through regular banks, you feel like you are in the 80s.
You will feel like sending through your mobile might feel like writing a check already.
Yes. And I think going forward, much of our interaction will be extremely agentized. I think if you look at how you have seen a sneak of our banking app, is that you get to interact with the computer in a very natural language. Actually, the tough part is actually not the natural language. The tough part is actually to agentize, to agent ready the banking APIs. And as more APIs, not just banking, like every APIs are being agentized, then you will see a whole economy that is entirely of agent talking to each other that you don't even see, right? So which is really what it is right now, but from an API standpoint. But in the future, it is going to be even more advanced. So when you want to, I don't know, book, find a doctor so that are suitable for you and book the next available. Everything will be done agent to agent. So there will be.
I think it's so interesting because just to add to your point, right? I remember hearing the Bumble CEO. Not that I'm on Bumble, I can't be on Bumble. But the Bumble CEO said that the future of dating would be AI talking to AI, then matching the profile. So I don't know. Can't even imagine what the world would be like. And on that note, a lot to think about, a lot to envision what the world will look like. But thank you so much for your time and sharing.
Thank you, Vincent. Thank you for having me again.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.